Hi, everybody. This is Garrett Heater, producing artistic director of Chelsea Opera. This is another segment of Hot Tea and High Seas with Chelsea Opera. Today, we are joined with founder and current treasurer of Chelsea Opera, Lynne Hayden-Findlay. Hi, Lynne. How are you doing?
Greetings from, I wish I were at Jones Beach, but
And do you have your tea? Do you have your tea,
um,
Lynne?
truth be told, it's just apple cider from the farmer's market that I bought yesterday. So there you go.
It's a good autumnal winter choice. Nice job. I'm drinking a spiced turmeric tea. I'm actually running out of tea. I need to get more. I need to get more tea. These interview sessions have been taking a toll on my tea selection. So
I'm
that's that.
sure.
All right,
I
Lynne.
grew up
So,
on Lipton tea, and then when I got to college, I discovered there were other kinds of teas. It was an amazing,
oh, a transformative experience. One might say.
totally
Yeah.
orange
So,
spice.
Lynne, I am thinking that many people who are going to be watching or who have watched these interviews with past Chelsea Opera alumni are going to know that you are, in fact, a founder of the company, but they may not,
Co-founder.
co-founder of the company, excuse me, um, but they may not understand the story behind the founding of Chelsea Opera. And I was hoping that could be a place where we would start talking about you and Lee and the creation of the company.
Well, Lee and I met in a singer program. We were singing a duet together. We became very good friends and we stayed in touch over time. Some years later, we both coincidentally wanted to produce Suor Angelica. We both had friends we thought could sing the role of Suor Angelica. So we sat on a bench near my house and figured out how we could do this on a 25 cents budget. Got volunteers to participate, got an ensemble together, got props pulled from our closets and borrowed costumes from two different places, made it work, and we basically produced Suor Angelica, and that was all we intended to do. But so many people came back and said, that was an amazing production, and the performers said, that was an amazing experience. What are you doing next?
Right, of course.
We said, no, there's no next. That was it. We're done. And they said, no, you got to do something. And so we got incorporated in 2004, and we filed for our 501c3, which was approved in 8 days after the filing, which was unheard of. And normally it would take 8 months. And then we just started doing stuff show by show by show by show. And then eventually we were able to plan a real season. We did some serious fundraising, got some grants, support. I secured 2 NEA grants over the time. That was about it. And then I retired 5 years ago.
That's right. Yeah, you are in retirement. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
So
just like they say with the Godfather films, once you think you're out, they pull me back in again, right?
Well, Leah's really good about that. She says, I know you have your own life. I know you're doing your own things, but I still serve as treasurer, and so that keeps me very involved in, budgeting and paying bills and whatever.
Sure.
But I'm always there with the corporate memory, how we used to do stuff and how we went about doing this and who was this person and contact information. And just sort of the aesthetic that goes along with what Chelsea Opera became known for, and is still known for. So.
And if we go back to your production of Suor Angelica for a moment, would you mind letting everybody know the positions, if it was a staff position or creative position or a performer position that you and Lee took for that particular production, and how that segued into sort of why and how you became a director, a stage director for the company?
I had experience doing stage directing through college, and it probably should have been my career path, but I really wanted to be the next Julie Andrews. So when Lee and I started to work together, we both gravitated to things that we enjoyed doing, and it didn't seem to cross each other's paths. So she did certain jobs and I did certain jobs. And we would always confer with each other on creative decisions. It just kind of was a very organic building on each other's experience and interests and expertise that we individually brought to the jobs that we did. We both probably did about 15 to 20 different jobs within the company, both on the administrative side and the production side. So for example, I love doing costuming. She doesn't. She loves doing props. I don't.
Right.
So that was perfect.
Right.
And we were both
brilliant.
good at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, in situations, and I can totally attest to this, that when you are a founder or a co-founder of a brand new arts organization, you have to be maybe not good at many different things, but you have to be willing to do many different things. And sometimes it's a learning experience along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I was lucky. I had a very varied business career behind me that involved sales and marketing and fundraising and music. So a lot of those fed into what I was able to contribute to the company to make it work and make it work efficiently.
And what would you say is your most preferred position? I know that you have, as people usually do, you have a lot of positions that you need to maintain in order to get a production off the ground. But what's the one that makes everything else sort of worthwhile?
Well, the biggest job was being a stage director and costume designer for so many productions. And it's kind of ironic because stage directing is terrifying to me. The responsibility for a production is on the shoulders of the stage director in terms of generating a concept, feeding information to the designers so that it all works together, getting an interpretive response from the singers and the performers to build that production. And that's really scary, not only for the amount of work that it involves, but for the responsibility. And it's people think I'm crazy when I say this, but every time I started to get into the director zone, the director head, I really felt like I was channeling some other being from the universe. It wasn't me, it was some other person or some other creature or some other spirit. And that's the only way I can explain it. And when the production is over, I shed all of that and I feel as if I look back and I say, oh my God, how did we come up with that? How did I figure that out? Oh. It just blows my mind. And I think I couldn't do that again. I couldn't figure that out again on a different show. I mean, just.
I want to touch on that just briefly. I have had other interviews over the course of this series, and twice your production of Don Giovanni was mentioned. And twice the finale of your production of Don Giovanni was mentioned by two different people. And I was wondering if you could distill, your mantra or your manifestation of your director's vision. How can you distill that for us with the finale of Don Giovanni, which by all accounts was extremely creative, with great use of your space and integral to the storytelling, the concept that you chose?
Well, there were two things that motivated what the actual final scene became. One was the fact that, and I'm sorry to put it this way, I saw the Met and the City Opera productions, and I found their endings totally unsatisfying. It did not do what I thought the opera should do. And so consequently, that's the second motivation. Having done my research and having gotten to the point where I think I understood what happens in the end of this opera, that Giovanni is sent down to hell, basically. So we started off with the final scene where he's having this banquet, and 4 of the women in the chorus were dressed as Greek statues. And they came out and stood there literally in 4 positions on the stage. And at one point, where the music in also feeds this, one at a time they would turn. There was a beat and a chord that drove them to turn and come alive. 1, 2, 3, 4. They were also carrying this long, shiny black, silky kind of fabric, which then was pulled up across behind Giovanni. The backstage area, the back wall, was actually fabric with slits in it, which you couldn't see. But and this kind of comes out of a kabuki theater type of using of fabric. So the 2 women on each side each held an end, and the fabric was brought up and down, and then eventually Giovanni would get behind it, and then at one point they would snap it, and during that snap he ducks through the cut in the back wall, and he's gone.
He's gone. Yeah.
He's gone. On cue with the music. Oh my God. It was, it was very simple, but very effective. And a lot of people were like, oh my God.
Now, do you think that you mentioned the word, or maybe I'm just thinking of it equating to, but simple and effective, right? Being evocative rather than being literal. And how many times did you walk into a space, or you were familiar with a space with these operas that you knew you were going to be staging, and say, you know what, this is going to ask a lot of me, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off?
Well, I probably said that with every single show we ever did. And for much of the time, probably up until 2016, most of the productions were done at St. Peter's Church down in Chelsea.
Yeah.
And this had limitations. So, for example, when you're facing the stage, if you were to exit to the left, you would hit a wall, pretty much.
Okay, it's not good for singers.
So all the entrances and exits had to happen from the house right side, the other side.
Yeah.
And I tell you, by the 3rd year, I got sick of seeing people only coming and going on this one side of the stage. So it was the charge to the scene designer to try and create a set so that we could have a walk back, a cut back, so those actors, singers could get behind and then come in on the other side. And it was like a huge relief. It just opens up all kinds of additional staging possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And adds a little more interest.
Exactly. So sometimes that scare that we have right at the beginning, actually, once you work through it for a certain amount of time, you start to say, I'm glad I had that stumbling block because it caused X, Y, and Z to take shape.
Yeah. And
where
the other thing
you wouldn't have had the same show.
Well, the other thing with St. Peter's is that we couldn't hang a lot of things. We eventually got into putting up pipe and drape and hanging stuff, hanging lights, hanging drapes, hanging set piece things, or putting in platforming that made it a little bit easier for people to see, because otherwise, we used to joke saying, if you had to die, you had to die standing up because nobody would see you in the audience. So that was a problem. Bring in the platform.
Great sight lines, right?
we got very good at doing platforming. It was a totally transformed the whole space. We took it over for a week and were able to turn it into a very large black box theater, which for ticket sales was good.
And in speaking about all of these challenges, I know along the way, as there always is, or we would like to think that there always will be, there must have been some moments that stand out for you over the course of the 17 years that Chelsea Opera has been in existence that sort of percolate to the top. Not necessarily the best or your favorites, but just certain anecdotes that bubble up to the surface. Do you want to share any of those that were major achievements?
One of my favorite moments was that I choreographed the overture for Le Nozze di Figaro. Who does that? Nobody. But it created a choral ensemble commitment to the production.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a lot. It wasn't really dancing. It was just people moving in the space. It allowed us to do a pre-story to set up who these characters were in a setting that was a little bit different. It wasn't done in 18th century Spain. We did it in 1930s Spain. So it was a completely different visual look.
Sure.
And so we had the choreography of the servants cleaning up the house and bringing in all the luggage and bringing in all the furniture and moving the cartons. And then the family arrives and Figaro, the chauffeur, he's bringing in the bags, and the poor maid, Susanna, is trying to keep things clean. And the count is, he's oogling her. And there was a lot going on in 3 minutes, and that got it moving. So that was
great. And I was going to say, you mentioned one of the oldest operas that is continuously performed, very popular with opera houses. But Chelsea Opera also has created an identity for itself with contemporary works. Are there any contemporary operas that Chelsea Opera has that you have personally staged that you are extremely proud of?
Probably the John Adams, Abigail Adams piece, A Distant Love, Songs of John and Abigail Adams, which ironically takes place in the 18th century. So, and its music is drawn from the emerging string quartet, which was becoming very popular at the time. So Gary Fagan's music emulated the sound of the 18th century string quartet, even though it had a much more contemporary sound. The piece itself is John Adams singing a series of vignettes, and then Abigail Adams singing a series of vignettes. And when we first started to produce it, we went back to Gary and Terry Quinn, the librettists, and said, could you integrate these more? So otherwise it's sort of like a stand-up song cycle with nothing really going on. It could be imposed going on, and they said, no, that would cost a lot more money and blah, blah, blah. So I figured out that I would create a downstage life and an upstage life. So while John Adams is busy in Amsterdam trying to secure financing for the revolution, we see up in the back corner Abigail living her life, reading his letters. And this is all based on letters that were exchanged between the two of them during these periods. There were tons of letters, and thank God they kept them, most of them. So then at the intermission, that whole set would just swivel physically. We didn't have a revolve, but we just switched it. And as Abigail is living her life through the early days of the revolution and dealing with the fact that there is a shortage of tea, what do you know? And many other things, and that she's fighting smallpox and getting the kids inoculated, and they're deathly ill, and keeping the farm running and hiring and firing personnel, and basically being the businesswoman for this farm. Meanwhile, we see pantomiming John in the background preparing for his speech to The Hague to secure money for the financing of the revolution. It worked brilliantly. If I say so myself, I think it did. Well, it must have worked brilliantly, because we saw another production which was not ours, but the director borrowed the concept. And I guess the highest compliment
is, yeah.
So, and then because we had the NEH grant, we were able to take the whole production up to the Adams farm in Quincy, Massachusetts, and perform in their barn.
That's awesome.
Oh my God. We were walking on the planks that they walked on. It was
great.
surreal. It was surreal. And don't touch that railing. It's an antique.
Right.
But,
That's a national treasure, I imagine.
oh my God. It was so well received. They did a great job in promoting it locally, and it was a big success. I absolutely adore that piece.
Now, success is not a word that we're using a lot these days. These days, we're using words like lockdown and pandemic, and
Well,
we're not going out to the opera, we're not going to the ballet, the theater, and there are many people in our industry that are legitimately suffering and are planning on suffering more. People are saying until quite possibly May, when we'll see things starting to swing
yeah,
back
I
into
frankly think
normal
it's going to
gear.
be later than that, but
Right. Well, I guess my question to you would be, with your expertise in this field over the course of your still continuing career, what advice would you have to artists who are currently not able to work?
it's I'm so fortunate in that I am retired and I have a comfortable life, and I feel guilty about it every day. Um, and I cannot imagine being a 20 to 40 to 50-year-old in this world, trying to have to earn a living, trying to pay the rent, trying to pay mortgage, trying to pay student loans, taking care of kids, paying for their education. I can't, I have no idea how they're doing it. Um, and then, the fact that their artistry is being unused.
Sure.
Um, uh, there are a number of artists and other companies that are doing a lot of online work. It's not as satisfying, but it's something. But if you're a singer, for example, and you're stuck in a lockdown, you have to, first of all, get up every day. You have to keep yourself healthy mentally, and physically and vocally. You have to do that work. Um, it's a great time to sit and learn a new role that you can then perform, be ready to go on it, or
Sure.
two.
What a great idea.
Um, Brush up your languages. The Lord knows Americans are terrible at it for the most part. That's what I hear.
No, we love your honesty.
It's fix your language. You can be watching foreign movies. You can be working with a tutor over Zoom. That works really well. And think about what you need to do once the lockdown, once we're back to a so-called normal life. Where do you want your career to be? Where do you want to go with it? What do you want to be doing a year from now, 5 years from now? And if you have ideas, how do you get to that? You have to write a plan. You have to put it on paper and talk to people and figure out how you're going to get from here to there and then over to there. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. I tell my English students this all the time. Says, if you want to be watching and learning English better, then you have to write it down. You have to put it in your plan that you're going to watch one TV show every week, read this newspaper article every week, do this, and this, but write it down. Make a commitment. That's how it works.
That's great. That's all fantastic advice, Lynne. Lynne, we are at the end of our interview.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. They always go by so fast. I know, right? Yeah, I just have a little bit left. But usually we end our interviews on a high note. But since we have the holidays coming, we have Christmas and we have the New Year right around the corner, I was hoping you could humor me in a different way. What would be your wish for the new year? I'm hoping that's something that we can end on together today.
Wow. My wish for the new year is that by this time next year, teachers will be acknowledged as being worthy of being paid more than baseball players, and that our frontline workers in the hospitals are working less and hopefully on vacation someplace nice where they can relax and enjoy themselves.
Fantastic.
That's it.
Well said. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is another episode of
Hey, thank you. It's been
Hot
great.
Tea and High Seas with Chelsea Opera. Today, we were joined by Lynne Hayden-Findlay, one of the co-founders and current treasurer of Chelsea Opera, now in its 17th season. All right. Thank you so
Take
much,
care.
Lynne.
Bye, Garrett.
Bye.